Hey everyone, thank you for viewing part 1 of my Lyme disease series. I had a normal, happy childhood on Long Island, New York. I absolutely loved going to beaches, playing in the woods, playing in the parks, up a tree. Basically, I was very outdoorsy and a true tomboy. If my mom could not find me in the house, I was up a tree. My health started to get, I call it a little bit weird, around 5th grade. I was 10 years old, and all of a sudden, my stomach started hurting. I was like, what's the deal? It didn't hurt in 4th grade. It didn't hurt in 2nd grade. It started to hurt when I was 10 years old. And the doctor diagnosed me with IBS, okay, irritable bowel syndrome. But why? Why did I have that? That summer, I remember it was pretty stressful. There were people looking at our house. Mom said we were moving from Plainview to Old Bethpage to be in a better school district, and we needed a bigger house because our family was growing. I remember I, for the first time, felt stress. I did not want to move. I liked my little house. I liked my friends. And looking back, I feel like that stress, that move did something. It triggered some kind of a immune reaction in my body. I was also getting sick a lot more, like upper respiratory infections, colds. Really didn't understand why, but this was new. Let's jump way ahead. My story will continue in Oswego, New York. I was a freshman in college and I stayed up there for the summer. I just wanted to stay away, be on my own, have a good time, and take a little bit of courses so I can jump ahead with my education and maybe graduate a little bit earlier. The reason I'm telling you about the summer in Oswego, New York, it has everything to do with what happened. I lived off campus in a decent home. I had 3 housemates, and I remember there was one day, sometime in July, the neighbor's dog came to visit, and I was playing with the dogs because I like dogs. And I'm petting the dog, and I think I took a nap with the dog in my bed. 1 week later, after the dog came to visit and I was playing with the dog, there was an event at the Oswego Speedway, and I'm this social butterfly. I wanted to go. I had this really weird rash on my right leg, like behind my calf. It was kind of ugly. So what did I do? I put jeans on. I covered it up. I was totally embarrassed by this ugly red rash. I was like, what is this? But kind of ignored it. But what was really interesting was I remember that day at the Oswego Speedway, it was like 100 degrees in upstate New York, totally crazy weather. Normally it's maybe in the 70s or 80s. So I'm embarrassed. I wore blue jeans and a t-shirt and I went about my way. So I'm going to the Speedway and we had a really good evening. Okay, I come back and this is when things get really weird. I hop in bed and I'm lying there and I'm like, my legs hurt. Oh my God, my leg feels like it's on fire. And I'm screaming for Amy, my housemate. She comes running into my bedroom. She goes, oh my goodness, will you get out of that bed, please? And I was like half asleep, half awake, like, what? What's wrong? I said, my leg hurts. She's like, yeah, you've got fleas and ticks in this bed, that nasty dog, oh my goodness. So she pulled me out of the loft, threw my sheets and pillows and everything out the window, threw me in the shower, and we were both so tired because we were out really late. And then we all went back to sleep, called it a night. Okay, never really looked back to that night with the dog in my bed. Okay, so let's kind of jump ahead. The fall of '83, so this is my 2nd year in college, I was having such a good time. I was a art major. I loved art. The job that I had was a blast, because remember, I'm a social butterfly. I worked in the student union selling gummy bears and cigarettes and haying and hi there and hey, what's going on to all the college students. I loved it. The only problem was right across the hallway was this really annoying group. It was Born Again Society of Christian Students. I think it was called SAVAC, don't really remember. Back then, I really had no interest in religion, so I kind of ignored them. During the next semester, my health started getting really weird. I'm usually perky. And as you get to know me, I'm always like, I'll say things like hunky-dory and we need to be perky. And I was so tired, beyond needing a nap, beyond it's time to go to sleep. I am exhausted. It felt so strange. I remember working in the student union one night and some of the Born Again Society people were kind of dancing around the hallway. I was like, okay, whatever. I'm sweeping up the floor with the broom in the student union one night and my legs just went psh, down I go. It's like, what's going on? All of a sudden I'm standing there sweeping up the floor and then I'm on the floor. Oh my goodness. My boyfriend came to get me and I actually went in the bathtub thinking a bath might help. And I'm looking at my legs. They look like they were on fire. Seriously. They were red to look at and they were hot to the touch. I had no clue. I really had no idea what was going on. Weeks go on, still the same weak-leg symptoms, and now my stomach is like freaking out every day. I can't eat anything without my stomach freaking out. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm sitting in a social studies class, which I really liked. It was on women's history, and I can't think. It's like, what is wrong with me? Normally I'm really sharp. Usually I'm full of energy, and that just seems to be gone. During some of the breaks, my mom, who's a physical therapist, would take me to some of her doctor friends, hoping to figure out what was wrong with her daughter. And all I would say to them is the same thing. My legs are weak. My feet hurt. It feels like they're burning. My stomach is hurting and I can't think. And the only thing that kept coming up over and over again on the blood work is something called a high sedimentation rate. I had no idea what that meant back then. Nothing else showed up, and they really didn't know what to do with me. But my mom and dad totally believed me, and the doctors believed me that something was wrong. They just didn't know what it was. So back I go to Oswego for the next semester. And one of my art teachers, Mr. D, he's told me about his medical doctor and he goes, will you please go see him? I was like, sure, why not? So I go to see his family practitioner. Honestly, shouldn't have bothered because it started a whole cycle. He said, you have pain in your feet. Yeah? He goes, okay, you have something algia. Algia, A-L-G-I-A, that means pain. He goes, yeah, you have pain in your feet. I could have told you that. My professors were amazing. They were constantly in touch with my dad, who's an architect, and they started talking about the art building. Could the art building I was always in, like always, be toxic? The ventilation wasn't really good. The windows were very high up. There were no windows or really good ventilation. And I'm doing printmaking classes and painting and drawing. You know, my dad started thinking, could this just be toxins from the art classes? Like, I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. Senior year, I'll never forget this day. It was very cold in Oswego, New York. And I was just done. I wanted my degree and I wanted to graduate. My legs were killing me. And I was living off campus and somehow drove up the hill to the campus. I get out of the car with my heavy black portfolio. It's very windy out, and I remember getting to the art building, Tyler Hall. My legs just, no, they don't want to work. So I get down on my hands and knees because there's no way I'm going to miss my final exam and the final critique of all my artwork from that senior year. So I'm crawling, dragging my portfolio in my hand through the building. I get to the stairs because of course it's on the second floor and there's no elevator. I'm crawling up the stairs with my portfolio. It was a pretty sad sight. One of my professors, can't remember his name, came running over to me, lifted me up, carried me to my final, put me on the stool. And he looks at me and he's like, "What has happened to you, Alane?" I don't know. I feel like something got into my body and it's creating havoc inside of me. I have no idea what it is. I did graduate and I was thrilled. I went home to my parents' house on Long Island, and my mom, I love her like crazy. She took me to so many doctors in New York thinking they would have an answer. They didn't. They had no idea what was wrong with me, why I couldn't walk, what was going on. By then, I had gotten engaged to my boyfriend, and I did it hesitantly. I loved him, respected him, adored him. Deep down, I knew it wasn't a good idea because who knew what my future was going to be or our future? And I honestly didn't feel like it was fair for him to marry me because I didn't know what my future would bring. 2 frustrating years went on. Now I'm home alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. My husband was going to work every day, and I'm like, why am I here? This is terrible. I tried some art jobs in graphic design, printmaking, things like that. Kept getting fired or I'd end up quitting because I can't think. My legs hurt. One job, which I loved, wanted me to go into New York City every week and drive into the city. And I'm like, I can't. And I can't tell them why. And the truth, every few hours I would run into a bathroom to find some water. And I would run hot water over my feet every few hours while I was working. And I was hoping nobody would look in the bathroom and see me doing this because they wouldn't understand. But my feet had no circulation. It was crazy. They would go cold, they would go red, they would go white, a little blue. I was like, and the pain was crazy. So I stopped working in the field that I love and I pretty much stayed home. My day would exist with sleeping, obviously like 12 to 14 hours a night. I'd wake up, my feet are ice cold. I would drop to the floor, crawl on my hands and knees to the bathroom, put my legs over the bathtub and run hot water over my feet to get some circulation. And the lack of circulation, the coldness started creeping up to my legs. I did this every few hours. And when my husband got home from work, he would bring me some hot water to dip my feet in. He would try to get me out of the apartment to go for a walk, but the pain was absolutely unreal. I did a lot of doctor hopping, trying to find a doctor that would believe me and understand what's going on. I met a podiatrist in the state of New Jersey, and he diagnosed me with something called RSD, reflex sympathy dystrophy. He said, the only problem is I've never heard of a bilateral RSD case. Usually it happens because of an injury or something like that, and only to one part of the body, not to both sides. Little did I know he was writing a book about it and trying to make money off of me, which wasn't very nice. Some things he did do that was really helpful. He taught me about what kind of shoes to buy, inserts. I would go over there and put my legs in the whirlpool that he had over there, and that really made me feel good. But of course, by the time I got home, my legs were freezing cold again. I also had a rheumatologist that I really liked, and they put me on muscle relaxants, blood thinners, and anti-inflammatory. But again, nothing was getting to what happened or why this was happening to me. I was put on a medication called Valium because now my feet are like this, spasms in my feet. I'm like, oh my goodness, and the pain is absolutely unreal. We moved to a town in New Jersey called Parsippany. And this was really a God thing, I call it. And I should have listened. There was this young out-of-school neurologist, can't remember his name, and I really liked him. We had really good conversations when I was in the physical therapy department getting physical therapy done. He would come over to me and for free, he would examine me and talk with me. And he's like, Alane, you don't have RSD. This doesn't make sense. Your symptoms are not RSD, and RSD is not bilateral. He's like, please come see me and let's figure this out. Oh God, no. More blood tests, more painful tests. No. I looked at this really sweet neurologist and I was like, I can't do any more tests. I actually had met a surgeon, and he had agreed to do something kind of radical. It was called a abdominal bilateral sympathectomy. Like, oh my goodness, that sounds scary. Yeah, I think back, it really was. And in my opinion, it was kind of stupid for me to do it, but I did. What I was told was the surgery would cut the sympathetic nerve, which was the problem, and the lower half of my body should become warm, as pain-free as possible, and I shouldn't have this problem anymore. The surgeon said, it's a very difficult surgery, but I can do it. And we did a couple things beforehand called chemical blocks, just to make sure that the surgery would work. And the chemical blocks did help. So I thought that the surgery was my only option to ever walk again. So many of my friends, my family, even my physical therapist, and that one neurologist said, please don't do the surgery. You're going to regret it. It's so radical. I wasn't in a listening phase. I didn't want to listen anymore. I was totally frustrated, and I wanted to do something drastic to save my life. After the surgery, I kind of knew I messed up. I was lying on the table. The pain was unreal in my legs, and now my belly, it looked like I was pregnant, and I wasn't. My belly was so swollen. I was very sad and scared. I heard a voice. It was a male voice, and there were only women nurses around me. I really believe this was the first time I ever heard from God. It said, you made a mistake. I remember looking around the room. Nobody was there that was a guy. It was only girls. I knew deep down I made a mistake. The following few weeks were honestly some of the worst weeks ever for me. My abdomen was painful, bloated. The surgery cut my stomach, and I was starting to have reactions to foods now when I never did before. One lady in a doctor's office I was in actually came up to me and goes, oh, congratulations, how far along are you? I'm not pregnant. I had surgery and my stomach looks pregnant. She looked embarrassed. I did too. Something the surgeon said to me was he had trouble finding the sympathetic nerve, and I was actually open for 5 hours on the table, a lot longer than I should have been. My friends didn't know what to do with me, and by now my family didn't know either. They missed the perky Laney is what they called me. She was gone. My husband, I could not blame him, seriously, if he had left me. Why would he want to stay with me? I don't do anything. I can't do anything. And no, don't touch me because it's going to hurt. My mom and dad tried everything to help me, everything that they could. There were just no answers. One day I was in physical therapy in Denville, New Jersey. I really liked it there, but I was having kind of odd reactions to some of the therapies. Like you put the electric stimulation on me. Oh my gosh, talk about a vibratory effect all day long. I wouldn't sleep. And it hurt like crazy. And they're like, this is weird. Your body's reacting different than it should be. That was a clue. There was a van that would come to my apartment and pick me up 3 times a week, and I'd stumble into the physical therapy room. Sometimes we took a wheelchair, sometimes crawl, sometimes I just hold on to the walls. So Donna and Patty, 2 of my physical therapists, they worked so hard for me. They tried so hard to get me walking again. That was me on the even bars, trying to take one step at a time. They would sit me on the exercise bike and push my legs to get them to move. I didn't want my body to shut down. One day, Donna came over to me and she says to me, please, I want you to see one more doctor. No. Alane, trust me. I'm looking at Donna, and all I could see is this gold cross that she's wearing, and it's glowing. I was like, all right, this is kind of weird. I'm not Christian. I don't understand it, but obviously Donna is, and she's kind of glowing. It's kind of odd. Okay, what's this doctor's name? So she told me the doctor that worked upstairs from the physical therapy department, he was an orthopedic surgeon. And she's like, don't ask me why. I know he'll know what's wrong with you. Okay. He happened to have a cancellation that week. Normally he's booked for weeks at a time. So I went upstairs to go visit this doctor. Didn't have much faith, but okay, why not? This was different. He said, tell me your story and don't leave anything out. Okay, so I started way back to Oswego, New York. And the day at the Oswego Speedway with that ugly rash and the neighbor's dog and the pain and the multiple of doctors I've been to and the surgery I had. And he says to me, hold. Okay. He goes, I know what's wrong. Are you serious? Yes, but I'm not going to tell you today. Okay. Don't play games with me. He goes, I'm going to prove it to you. So you believe me. Okay, this is new. So he did connective tissue blood test for lupus, an MRI for MS. I did this really painful test called an EMG that was looking for nerve damage. Oh my goodness, did it hurt. He calls me, never forget, it was July 4th, trying to think of the year. I think it was 1985. And he says, Alane, congratulations. Huh? He goes, you have Lyme disease. What? Yeah. Do you remember the neighbor's dog you told me about? Yeah. Do you remember the rash on your leg at the Oswego Speedway? Yeah, it was really ugly. He goes, Alane, you got bit by a tick, or 2, or 3. And you have Lyme disease. That's what's wrong. He says, but 5 years into it, I don't know if you'll ever walk again. I don't know what to do. So I'm on the phone with him. I was like, that's okay. I love you. Thank you for figuring out what's wrong. This is not in my head. I'm not making this up. This is real. He goes, yeah, I totally believe you. This is what's wrong. So the test that he did was an antibody test. which showed positive. The next thing got kind of weird. He sent me to a infectious disease doctor, and I can picture the gentleman, and I really liked him. He did a better Lyme test. He said it was called the Western blot. Okay, so I did another blood test with him, and we went back in, I think it was 2 weeks later, for the test results. And he says to me, "You're negative." Huh? He goes, "You have 4 positive bands." Okay. But legally it's negative. How can I be negative for Lyme disease if the antibody test was positive and I have 4 of these positive antibody things that you're telling me? And I remember the dog, the ticks, the fleas, the rash. He winks at me and he says, "I'm going to give you 6 weeks of antibiotics." Okay. And all I can think about was, why is he giving me 6 weeks of antibiotics if the test is negative? And I really don't know what's going on right now. He said, "Just take it." Okay. Next was kind of interesting. I go on vacation, first time in years, to kind of celebrate this odd diagnosis that right now I'm not sure if I really have. I meet this lovely couple, Chuck and Vicky from New Jersey, and they start telling me about chiropractic medicine. I'm like, I don't know what chiropractic is. They're like, "Okay, I want you to go see this Dr. Andy in New Jersey and let him adjust your spine." Adjust my spine? What? And they're like, "Just trust us." Okay, now you sound like Donna. I'm thinking, give it a try. Why not? What could it hurt?